Okay, so we going on the basically the negotiations of what a contract would look like before we actually got the actual contract. Al goes in to saying a guy that I don't know, never represented me, not affiliated with Team Crawford, have no whatsoever place in Team Crawford's, stable, representing me in a contract which I have no nothing upon that I agreed to. So basically, that was a standpoint of what the contract would look like. So basically, I'm talking to Al, and I'm like, Al, come on, man, I don't even know this guy. How can you do that? And he's like, well, the guy stated he's a part of your team and whatnot.
We are going to dive into that right now. And I'm talking about the guy that Terrence Bud Crawford did not name in his IG Live post. It was a name that he did not reveal on his IG Live post. However, it was a name that was brought up to him by Al Heyman, which he referred to in a conversation that he had with Al Heyman about this particular guy, about this name that wasn't revealed. When Al Heyman was asking Bud Crawford about this particular guy and his relationship with this particular guy and his involvement in the past with this particular guy. Yup. And Bud Crawford himself said he doesn't know the guy. He's not affiliated with the guy. And I think he even mentioned that he never was affiliated with the guy. And this particular guy was never a part of his camp. Quote, unquote. These are the words of Bud Crawford. Well, let's take Bud Crawford's words and let's see if Bud Crawford was being honest to the fans and even honest with himself, even though he did not want to reveal the identity of this particular guy. And the guy's name is Daniel Kinahan. Most of us in the boxing world have heard of his name. Most people have seen him in person here in America. Some people at this point realize that he is on the run from law enforcement. Okay, he is living in Dubai, which was the last time that it was reported where he resides in the Middle East. It has already been reported that he has conducted business in the past with Bob Arum, okay, who said himself that he utilized the resources of Daniel Kinahan to be able to promote fights and be a part of the promotion procedures of getting fights advertised, marketed, and even promoted in the Middle East, as those fights in the Middle East will basically materialize. Also, we have heard several reports in the past year that this guy by the name of Daniel Kinahan is a mob boss. He's a crime leader. He is a mob boss, allegedly, of the Kinahan crime family or the Kinahan gang in the Middle East. He's from Ireland, and I believe he is, it has been reported that he is still on the run from authorities in Ireland, which I believe is his hometown, though he does reside in Dubai, or at least that's what's been reported. That was the last residence that he had, was in Dubai. And so let's talk about this gentleman, Daniel Kinahan. And let's see what Bob Arum had to say in an interview on May the 9th, 2020, when this was published. Now, I don't know exactly when the interview took place, but we know that this interview was published on May 9th of 2020. Let's take a listen to what Bob Arum says about Daniel Kinahan.
And our relationship with MTK has been tremendous, and particularly with Dan, who was the original founder of MTK and now is still an advisor to them, and is in effect our advisor regarding the Mideast. He's living in the Mideast, and he has very, very good connections. And so we, early on, ceded to Dan the authority to explore opportunities in the Mideast on behalf of Top Rank.
So, we've heard what Bob Arum said about Daniel Kinahan. He said a lot of great things about Daniel Kinahan. He talked about how, like I said in the beginning of this video, how basically Daniel Kinahan was going to be his plug, as we say here in America, his plug in the Middle East so that he can promote fights in the Middle East. And sounded good, right? Sounded like him and Daniel Kinahan has a great business relationship. Well, before I play the next clip of what Bob Arum said months after that interview, let me post a report from May 20th, 2016, where the Irish Mirror reported that Daniel Kinahan fled to Dubai. Okay? Now that is very significant in of itself, because as I mentioned earlier, it was reported that the last known residence of Brian Kinahan was in Dubai. But we see in 2016, it was reported that he fled to Dubai. Keep the word and location of Dubai in your psyche, because we're going to bring that right back up and the significance of Kinahan being in Dubai. Anyway, let's move forward to the interview that Bob Arum did months after that interview that I just played with Bob Arum. And this interview took place on November the 14th, 2020, or at least that's when it was published on YouTube. And let's hear Bob discussing a fight in the Middle East to take place between Terrence Bud Crawford, his fighter, and Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, who at this time was already signed to the PBC in Al Haymon.
Looking forward to it.
We've seen some quotes, I guess, from his lawyer recently, frustration about big fight. Do you share in his frustration? I imagine you guys are doing, all you can to make these fights happen. So do you share in his frustration?
No. I mean, except it's frustration at a large extent based on the pandemic. I would have had the Crawford fight with Manny Pacquiao done for the Mideast. All the numbers were agreed on by the fighters with the country. And then, of course, the Minister of Health said, you can't go ahead because we can't assure that you'd have spectators because of the COVID.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't it amazing that Bob Arum talked about Daniel Kinahan being his plug in the Middle East to be able to assist in the process of showcasing a fight between his fighter at that time, who was signed to Top Rank, Terrence Bud Crawford, and a guy, Manny Pacquiao, who was a part of Al Haymon's PBC. Interesting. Why is that interesting? Well, it's interesting for two reasons. Number one, Bud Crawford would then, the following year, file a lawsuit against Top Rank and Bob Arum, stating that Bob Arum basically wouldn't provide him with any of the big name fights, including Errol Spence Jr. And also, the second thing that's significant and reason is that Bud Crawford was in a video that he posted and that was actually reposted on YouTube. And that's why I said to you a few minutes ago, keep the location and name Dubai in your psyche, because here is a picture. This is just a still photo of Bud Crawford being in a live recording with him recording himself in this particular picture in Dubai, the Middle East. And in this picture, Bud Crawford looks like he's doing some training, hitting the heavy bag with, looks like that's Shakur Stevenson on the other side of that heavy bag. And this post that was posted May 31st, 2021, it looks like Bud Crawford is in Dubai. But we know at this point that I keep calling this guy Brian. Daniel Kinahan, last known location was him residing in the Middle East and him residing in Dubai. We heard what Bob Arum talked about, him being the plug in the Middle East. Well, it's Terrence Bud Crawford. He's out there in the Middle East. Moving right along. Don't take my word for it. I mean, it's a possibility that Daniel Kinahan was advising Bud Crawford. Here's a report, September 9th, 2021. This is literally 4 months after the picture that I just posted on that video that Bud Crawford did in the Middle East in Dubai, where it says that Daniel Kinahan is advising Bud Crawford. And this is according to Alan Dawson. And Alan Dawson basically got his information from a reporter in the Mirror of Ireland publication named John Hand, who is a crime journalist and who has been reporting on Daniel Kinahan for years. Now, Bud Crawford also had a stablemate at one point in time in him being promoted by Top Rank. Of course, Shakur Stevenson is one, but the other one was Jamel Herring. And in this report, we see that Jamel Herring's name was mentioned in this report, that he was being advised by Daniel Kinahan. Now, somebody might say, well, Marty, these are just like reports. You can't just go by what you read. And you know what? I agree. Let me put up another report, because this report has similar significance, that on January the 12th, 2022, according to ringtv.com, they reported that Bud Crawford was suing Top Rank and Bob Arum for racial bias. Well, what's the significance of that? The significance of that is the next day, on January the 13th, 2022, the Sun World reported that Bob Arum was being sued by Bud Crawford, who's being advised by my boss, Daniel Kinahan, right? Interesting. Now, once again, someone can say, Manager Marty, you can't go by all the reports that you read, because some things can be taken out of context and you can misinterpret what you're reading. I mean, I agree to some extent to that. But let's go by words that we hear. So we see what we've read in the reports with our eyes. Let's go by some words that we need to hear to confirm all of these reports that Daniel Kinahan has not only been advising a stablemate, Jamel Herring, but it's possible that he's also been advising Terrence Bud Crawford, the same guy who Al Heyman asked Terrence Bud Crawford about. Let's go by what we hear from Bob Arum. And let's hear what Bob Arum has to actually say about the relationship between Daniel Kinahan and Terrence Bud Crawford.
And this was 6 weeks ago, and they haven't. So I don't know whether the case is going forward or is not going forward. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, there's no case. I mean, no case from this. I'm not giving you an opinion on the merits of the case. I'm just saying there is no case because nothing's been filed.
Right. And Top Rank was unwilling to settle anything outside of court. You guys wanted to go the legal route.
Well, they hit us with the lawsuit before they asked us to sit down and see if we could settle. My feeling is that this lawsuit was really dreamed up by Kinahan and his people, because Crawford indeed had sent us an email saying that he and Kinahan were partners. This is before the Porter fight.
Oh, that's interesting. So now it's interwoven into the Daniel Kinahan issue. So
it may be. I don't know. Again, I'm just saying that the last communication of that kind that we had was from Terrence, which said that Kinahan was his partner.
Whoa! Shout out to Barbershop Conversations, because that's who was interviewing Bob Arum. Did y'all hear what Bob just said? Bob just said that Terrence Bud Crawford never even told him, never even communicated with him or the executives of Top Rank, and even told them that he was not going to renew his contract with them. In fact, he sent an email, and in that email, according to what Bob Arum just said, was basically that Terrence Bud Crawford and Daniel Kinahan are 50-50 partners. And that basically, from now on, he's going to move forward in a relationship or a business relationship with Daniel Kinahan. That's what Bob Arum said. And Bob Arum said that, once again, on Barbershop Conversation. I don't know the host's actual name, but that's the name of the actual channel, who interviewed Bob Arum. And that interview took place August 2nd, 2022. Isn't that interesting? So it's not out of the ordinary for all of these reports to circulate and all the things that Bob Arum said about Kinahan, the good stuff, and then he started realizing later on that maybe what he was hearing had a little bit of truth to it. So he backed out of his business relationship with Kinahan because the United States was imposing a lot of sanctions on him. So anybody that was doing business with this Daniel Kinahan fella will actually be sanctioned as well. So I can understand why Bud Crawford is telling Al Heyman and telling everybody on IG Live that he don't know anything about this guy. He don't know him. He don't have any business relationships with him. I get that. But the question remains, why lie about knowing the guy? If you didn't do anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. I mean, think about it. According to Bob Arum, Bud Crawford sends him this email stating that he was 50-50 partners with Kinahan way before the United States even imposed any sanctions on Kinahan. So, I mean, Bud wouldn't have got in trouble anyway because there was no documented evidence that he had a relationship with him in the first place. And so this is just crazy how Bud Crawford basically is saying that this guy's not even in his camp, this Kinahan guy. That's what he told Al Heyman. Well, Jamel Herring, he was a part of the Top Rank stable, and he was actually in his camp at that time. And of course, y'all just heard Bob say that Jamel Herring was definitely advised by Kinahan. And how does Bob know that? Because you heard it. You heard it yourself. He said that he allowed Herring to be released for just one fight so that Kinahan can be able to promote Herring, because, you know, Jamel Herring was still under contract with Top Rank. So, you know, you're starting to see what's happening here. And the question remains is, why would Bud Crawford not keep it real, not be honest about his business relationship with a reputed and alleged mob boss from another country who he claimed, according to Bob Arum, he was 50-50 partners with? So once again, there's a thing in the court of law, okay? It's called, how can I say this? Omniforces, I think, what is it called? There's a saying, man, I'm going to get it right after this. I can guarantee I'm going to get it. But I think it's called uno forces, omni forces. And I think that basically translate in Latin, if one thing is a lie and is false, everything else a person say in the court of law is false as well, must be scrutinized. So that's the whole point of this video, is that to say, listen, to all of you fans that don't understand what's happening, we have to be credible and honest and be truthful, okay? We have to live with integrity, okay? So if you're lying about one thing, how can people believe any other thing that's been coming out of the mouth of Terrence Bud Crawford? Okay, I'm not here to indict the guy. I'm just saying you got to keep it real with the fans. Have to be honest with the fans, because it's the fans who pay our hard-earned money to see these fights and to see what's going on. And we are asking for transparency. You know how Bud Crawford said he was asking, you know, to see the books and transparency? The fans, we want transparency when it's time to discuss what's happening behind the scenes and what broke down these negotiations. So we asking Bud Crawford right now for transparency. What was his business relationship with Daniel Kinahan? That's what we want to know. Because you think about it, every time he asked about the monies in this hedge fund and who the money's coming from, just like on his recent interview with DAZN, he don't want to tell nobody where the money coming from. He didn't even want to tell Errol Spence where the money's coming from. You know, the $50 million that was supposed to be placed on the table for both of them to get the $25 million peace guarantee. Well, that's my spill. I look forward to getting some feedback in the comment section below. I look forward for you all to like this video, share this video. And for those of you that already subscribed, thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, I appreciate your time and I appreciate you subscribing. And I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. I'm Manager Marty. Till next time.
Representing the business of boxing, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Manager Marty!
Thank you. You're far too kind. Thank you very much.